Okay, so this is the third mairmar.
Oh.
Chapter 11. Anyway. Okay, so the truth is that this is where, in my opinion, the mairmar really gets really good. Although it's a little bit less famous than the other two. But it's the deep, sort of Hasidic, mystical parts now that we get into. But it's at page 131 we're going to start.
131.
Yeah.
More so just do one.
So this is it. This is the real stuff. The truth is, I would start here, but I think you'd feel like you got cheated. So this is the beginning of the depth of the mairmar. So as he actually says right in the beginning, Levar ba'omek yoser, to explain in a deeper way. Mash Yisrael nikraim Hashem tzivos Hashem. This is the Jewish people that are called tzivos Hashem, as where we left off. What does it mean we're called the legions of God? Shem tzivos, hu shem tzivakos, hu shem kadosh. So the name tzivakos, as we said before, it's one of the holy names. It is one of the 7 names that if you write it, you're not allowed to erase it. You have to bury it. 7 names of Hashem. This name was not, as we said before, not written in the actual Chumash. It only was revealed by the later prophets. Chana, I think, was the first person to use it. Right? The Torah lo nizkar shem tzivakos. In the Torah, it does not mention this name. Nizkar rak tzivos Hashem. But what it does say is the legions of Hashem. In other words, V'kayal Yisrael. It refers to this name, but it refers to it not as a holy name, but as the name of the Jews. Right? Not as one of the divine names, but as tzivos Hashem, the legions of God, which refers to us. So what is this quality that we were given? They were called tzivos Hashem, which is ultimately really one of the names of God, but it's called on the Jewish people. Meaning to say, what exact quality do we have which enabled us to take on the title tzivos Hashem? And this title was given to us in a specific time, in a certain place, when we left Egypt, specifically. So to explain, Hine Isa Midrash Rabbah. So it's brought in the Midrash Rabbah, in Shemos Rabbah, Perek Gimel. It says, Shmi atam vakesh leida. Right? You want to know my name? Says Hashem, Lefi ma'asai ani nikra. According to my deeds I am called. In other words, good luck trying to find out my name. I'm called each time according to my deeds. Because ani nilcham im rashaim, nilachem im rashaim. When I will fight with the wicked, ani nikra tzivakos. That's what the name tzivakos means. Then you can call me by the name legions, right? Hashem tzivakos is when I'm busy taking it out on the wicked. Im kein muvan de shem tzivakos hu shem de milchama. Therefore, the name tzivakos is really a name of war. It's when God is at war. V'kein isa b'shari ora. It's also brought in shari ora. The shem tzivakos hu ben Netzach v'hod. What does he say over there? That tzivakos goes on the spheros Netzach v'hod. Netzach is victory, right? And from that region, when Hashem invests His divine light into the spheres of Netzach and Hod, that's where war comes into the world. That's when all the wars of the world are drawn from this level. He enlivens, so to speak, war. He fights wars and brings war from this investiture into Netzach and Hod. So we have to understand, what's that?
Like we said in Shir Yam.
Okay, yeah. So what is exactly the connection of war to the 2 spheros, Netzach and Hod, which are respectively the 7th and the 8th sphera? That specifically from there, why? What do they do wrong? What's their quality that from them specifically comes out and has produced all the wars of the world? So the concept of victory, which is the midah of Netzach, means to be victorious, it's relevant only in a great man. Someone who's not great does not bring forth his midah of Netzach. Demishu shuffle be'erech, someone who's relatively low. Hine im yomar adam kenegdo lo yinatzeach. If someone's going to say something against him, he's not going to fight back. He's not going to win. He's just going to sort of put himself down and say, okay, whatever you say, sir. Right? El yachol lanos azos. He could answer back sort of arrogantly. He could answer back stubbornly, but he's not going to come back and win. He could just humble himself and say nothing, or he could say yeah, who do you think you are? Whatever he's going to, but he's not going to come back and be victorious, because he's not a big man. Only a big man actually is going to come and take over the place, right? V'davke mishu gadol hare yesh bo midas hanitzachon. Only someone who's big, right? Who's great, does he really possess the midah of nitzachon. V'kasher yomer adam davar negdo, when a person's going to say something against him, or is going to do something which is not according to his will, he's going to overcome that other person, and trying to bring out the justification for his position. And he's going to fight, right? Again, this could obviously be in the side of evil or the side of good, but we're talking about, and I guess in truth, when evil is going to come before good, then you're going to see who's really the good man, because he's not going to bow down to evil either. He's going to bring out, even if see who's writing this mairmar, the Frierdiker Rebbe, who stood up to the whole majesty of communist Russia single-handedly, right, and walked out of there kind of unscathed, right? And the idea is that, and brought down the whole communism with him, said the Rebbe. But that's the idea of standing up to power and not allowing it to sort of scare you away. So this not everybody has such a power, right? Not everybody really has the ability to realize their truth and bring it out and make sure its justification is heard loud and clear, no matter who's going to come against them. It takes a big man to do that.
So did it say we should be like dust for a ball man?
Right, so in other words, that means Moshe should just go to Paro and make himself like dust and let Paro do whatever he wants? In other words, you're right, we should be humble. But humble does not mean weak and unimposing. Humble means it's that you realize that everything you're doing is for God. That's what means humble. But if it requires warfare and great strength, that's also called humility, because you're not doing it for yourself, right? So Moshe's coming to Paro and standing up to strength is actually because he's the most humble man in the world, right? He realizes that the mission is greater than him. If it was his own private affairs, he probably would have stepped aside and, he's putting his life in danger. But he's willing to put his life in danger because of his humility, because he's a great man. And only the true, remember you see all the 70 elders, they were supposed to go with him to Paro. But it says, they all kind of one by one slipped away because they weren't as great. And to stand up to Mamish Paro Melech Mitzrayim, you have to be a great man. And that great man is the one who has this Netzach, right? In fact, Moshe's Midah is Netzach, right? If you look in the Sukkos, the 7 days of Sukkos is the 7 Midos. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malchus. So they each one correspond with the Tzaddik. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes. Netzach is Moshe, is the next one. So Moshe's Midah, Pashat is Netzach. Why is Moshe Netzach? You think Moshe is a lot of things. So he gets stuck over there with Netzach? I'm saying it's kind of a random sphera? No, it's not. That's what this whole mairmar is about, by the way, is the intense awesomeness of the sphera of Netzach, that only the greatest of the greatest, really, are going to win. Because at the end of the day, again, we're stuck in the side of Kedusha. If you're not going to win, someone else is going to win, either an argument or a battle, you're gone. You lose. You're out of it. Yiddishkeit can't lose. It has to keep winning, no matter what and who comes against it. So we have this, and you know what else Netzach means besides victory? It means endurance. It means eternality. Because that's what you need. If you're going to be eternal, you have to win every single time. It's not like the Jews lost and disappeared, and then they're going to come back and fight another day. It doesn't work like that. You have to win every single time. You could lose a battle here and there, but the war you win every single time. And if you don't have the midah of Netzach. And therefore you're not eternal. So who has Netzach Mamish? A great man. Only a great man. Because everybody else, eventually, he'll fall to the one who has a greater Netzach. V'hu al derech sha'am razal, and this is what the sages said, Kol Talmid Chacham, she'einu nokam v'noter kenachash, einu Talmid Chacham. Any Torah scholar who does not take vengeance, what are the two words? Vengeance and jealous. Who's not jealous and vengeance like a snake, he's not a Talmid Chacham. Right? Think about that for a second. Any Talmid Chacham who does not have vengeance like, envy and vengeance like a snake, he's not considered a Talmid Chacham. Perish Rashi, what does Rashi say by this? Nokem nikmaso v'noter eva belibo. In other words, he's willing to avenge his injustice and sort of, I don't remember how to translate this word, but same thing. They basically be jealous over whatever is like sort of burning in his heart. In other words, which would normally, of course, be like a very bad midah, right? We're going to see in a second. But in other words, something like sort of burning in his heart. He's jealousy in his heart. He's not a Talmid Chacham if he lets it sit there. He has to mamish go and venge it, like take it back, right? There's a word for it in English, I forget. Like a snake, huh?
Retribution, like that.
Retribution. Yeah, mamish. To take retribution. If he doesn't have it, he's like to the extent of a snake, then he's not a Talmid Chacham. This has to be explained. Do not walk away at this particular junction. Ayin hadiyuk nachash dafka mevur sham. So he says, look over there. Why it's specifically called a snake? I think it's like you said. Like the snake is like sort of bites by the heel and takes its vengeance. Not even though it could die from it. He's never gonna let you get away without having his vengeance. Okay, but Hiksha Gemara. This is brought in the Gemara. And the Gemara right away, of course, says, hold on a second. Ksiv lo takum v'lo titor. It says don't. There's a negative commandment. Do not take vengeance and do not take retribution. Right? So how will you be a Talmid Chacham unless you have retribution like a snake? Meanwhile, the Torah tells you you're forbidden from taking retribution. And the idea over there, it gives like examples. If a guy comes and says, lend me, do you mind if I borrow your hammer? Yeah, or you ask a guy, can I borrow your hammer? And he says no, right? So the next day he comes to you and he says, hey, can I borrow your hammer? And you say no. That's a negative commandment. You're not allowed to do that. You must give him your hammer. And then the second one, because these two things are very similar. The second one, vengeance and retribution. The second one is you ask the guy, can I borrow your hammer today? And he says no. The next day you come to him and say, can I borrow your hammer? He comes to you and says, can I borrow your hammer? You say, yeah, here it is. Not like you who didn't give me your hammer yesterday. You can't do that either. What? You have to just give him your hammer with a full heart. So either of these two things, not only are they not a positive, it's forbidden al pi Torah to have retribution and take vengeance. So this is the question. Where are you coming along where a Talmid Chacham who does not have vengeance and retribution like a snake is not a Talmid Chacham? In other words, he needs these qualities. It's very strange what's going on here. Nonetheless, when it comes to a real Torah scholar, he has a heter. He's allowed to have vengeance. He's not in the category of a regular person who says don't take vengeance. Because a Talmid Chacham is a truly great man. He's not a simple person. There's many laws about a Talmid Chacham. They have different laws than regular people. They're believed automatically. They don't have to take oaths in the same way because, I don't even know if we have any real Talmid Chachamim according to the strict, definition of the Torah around today. It's not like any guy who walks around with a hat and beard. It's called a Talmid Chacham. But a real Talmid Chacham who Pasha knows the Torah fully in every dimension, he's given a heter to have retribution and vengeance. Even though by a regular person it's completely usher. Lios nokam v'noter. Why? Amnam anakima v'natira shmuteres the Talmid Chacham, but this vengeance and retribution that's permitted to a Talmid Chacham, v'od yoser shemachoyev ba, not only is permitted, but he's obligated in it. He's not a Talmid Chacham unless eino chas v'shalom anakima v'natira hamura b'Torah. It's not, God forbid, the same vengeance and retribution that the Torah is talking about. V'ka'am ramzal sham That, as the sages say over there, the one from the Torah, the negative commandment, Hahu b'mamon hu dukasi. That's talking about money and like sort of gashmias and arrogance type of vengeance. That's for fools and simple people. We're not talking about that with the Talmud Chacham. V'hainu the nakim of natira mechuyeves the Talmud Chacham, which means that this vengeance, which is obligated by a Talmud Chacham, einu b'shvil mamon. It's not because of his stuff or his honor, in the way of, so to speak, his private personal honor. Oh habali de mamon. It's not vengeance he's taking because of his money or something about money. Mekom makom. Nevertheless, harizei nakim minatira. But guess what? It still is mamish vengeance, and it still is mamish retribution, and he has to have them. Ela sheyesh tanai b'davar. But there's one big giant condition. Sheyeh Talmud Chacham dafka. That you actually have to be a Talmud Chacham. In other words, if you're not a serious, heavy-duty sage, you're not allowed to touch this stuff. Because only a great man really has the power of vengeance, of Netzach. But Talmud Chacham, and what is a Talmud Chacham? Maybe it is relevant for others. You have to figure out if you're a Talmud Chacham. Shemakabel min ha-Chachma. Think about the word itself. Talmud Chacham, it sort of just has it has its own word of its own, just kind of a sage. But no, it actually means something. The two words, Talmud Chacham, means you're a student of Chachma. Right? That's what it means, Talmud Chacham. Hu tafel eleha, you're a student of Chachma, which means you're also secondary, like a student to a Rav. You negate yourself before the Chachma. You're secondary to the Chachma. Chachma is wisdom. Yesterday's Tanya, it's a little bit more than just wisdom. Koach ma. It's the power of what? It's that level of divinity which is beyond comprehension, as he says over there. And he's a Talmud to Chachma. He is a student of this unknowable wisdom of God which is beyond comprehension. V'hainu dekol asiyosa v'inyana, which means all of his business, all of his deeds, all of his matters, hu bishvila chokhmah. He's secondary to it. He's nullified to it. Means he doesn't make a move unless it accords with the chokhmah, the unknowable divine reality. That's what guides his entire every move. That's what it means a Talmud Chacham. Shezeu klalus inyan Netzachon. And this is basically what Netzachon really means: victory. Right? That he is. That's what I said. Yes, you're dust to the earth. You're dust before every man. But if you're Chochmah, Moshe himself was called Chochmah, right? He's called Netzach, but his real thing is Chochmah, because he says Nachnu Ma. He and Aaron, he says, what are we? What? Ma. Koach Ma. Moshe embodied in his very essence this inyan of Ma, a level of divine light which is beyond comprehension, and every single move he made was in accordance with this, what we cannot see and what we believe in. So this is who really gains the ability to have nitzachon, victory, and nekama, and vengeance, because it's not his, it's not for himself. He's taking the vengeance of Hashem. And that's what it means, the victory. And that victory is only possible with a truly great person. Because if you're not great, which means you're not bittul, you're not nullified to the oneness of God and the mystery of what cannot be understood, but you're doing it for money or something connected with money or privateness, you're not allowed to get anywhere near this idea of trying to be victorious over another person. Because who are you? Why is your person greater than their person? You're doing it for yourself anyway. Keep your netzach in your pants there, right? In other words, the idea is that this is not for you. This is someone who's truly great, who's bottled to the Chokhmah of God. He is able to suddenly wield this inyan of absolute victory and crush the other person, because it's God's war that he's fighting. Of course, you could think you're fighting God's war. There's a lot of people out there think they're fighting God's war. But again, you got to be a Talmud Chacham, right? And they're for sure not. Anyone who's greater, midas and nitzachon who be yoser etzlo. So the quality of victory is also greater by him, right? It goes to a little conversation we had at the Shabbos table yesterday. In other words, this idea of what you call politics between groups. We talked about the Baal Shem Tov and the Misnagdim. There's the Hasidic revolution and there's the opponents, right? And we talked about it the other day, I think in class. Where are these opponents? Who are these opponents? The opponents kind of went away. There are not that many opponents anymore, and they're not as grand and powerful as they once were. And yet we sort of keep them around. We talk about them all the time, and because the whole idea is that there's a certain nitzachon element and victory element that comes when it comes to bringing a new dimension of godliness into the world. That it comes with a platform of, we're not just suggesting that this is what has to be done now. We're telling you that this is going to be done now. And anyone who stands in our way, we're going to explain to you, stand up to you, and fight for this cause until the end. Because it's God's cause that we're fighting for. It's not okay to not learn Chassidus in this generation. And if you think so, let's put it on the table. Right? You bring your Netzachon, you bring your Netzach, and we'll bring our Netzach. And we're going to see whose Netzach is bigger. Because whoever's Netzach is bigger, that's who's the bigger man. And I'll tell you something, Chassidus is not going anywhere, and it has never gone anywhere, because it's bigger. It's coming from a bigger man. It's coming from the Moshe of the generation. And when he wants something to happen, he's willing to fight for it. And you see that even though the Rebbe was Ish Menucha, the man of peace, the lover of every Jew, when it came to certain issues, he was a nokev noter. He was a vengeance taker and a retribution taker. There were certain issues that he did not bend on, no matter how many people came and begged him to. Like, for example, we're not giving away any piece of Eretz Yisrael. Like, for example, who's a Jew? That your mother is a Jew or you convert Orthodox, that's it. Anyone else, come speak to the Rebbe. He'll tell you a few words about it. And he's not going to bend, because he has the midah of Netzachon. And he's big, and no matter who comes against him, he could be the prime minister, other Hasidic Rebbes, it doesn't matter. He fought with them on this issue, of course, in Darchei Noam, in a way of peace, in a way of pleasantness, but unbending. Because that quality comes from a big man. That's what makes him a big man, is that he knows he has to bring his truth forward, because his truth is nullified to the real truth. And it's not his battle that he's fighting. I think we ought to maybe close that door, though, guys, if you know what's good for you.
Good idea.
Close. Is this a situation like people attack your family or your community, and then they put them in, like, they jeopardize their security, like they're not safe anymore, right? Like, and then you have to do something to, like, reestablish that, like, security.
Again, it's not any old person that can just decide because his family was this, that, or the other thing. You know, in other words, vengeance for a regular person is prohibited. So you have to go through the general channels of justice and so forth. And the Torah, of course, is just, and the Torah will take the proper vengeance when it's necessary. The Torah will dictate, you know, that there is, if a person murders, you're supposed to go chase him and murder him back. So for instance, all according to the laws of Torah. You know, but in general, it's because it's the laws of Torah. You can't just take matters into your own hands and be vengeful.
I didn't say that. I mean, maybe it's like simple as like making a police report or like getting, you know, like doing something, like taking some sort of action.
In general, yes. Yes, like, Jewish people, if you notice, throughout the history, we don't back down from things. We are like pursuers of justice, right? We're not afraid to speak to power. You know, even if we're doing it for the wrong reasons and for the wrong team sometimes. You know, we still have this feeling in us that we have to like go fight for justice. It could be that the Jewish people who are fighting for justice are very confused. They lost their way in Torah and they're fighting for the wrong side of the justice. But you'll see that they're not afraid to go protest. They're in the front lines because there's this power in a Yid that he has got this nitzachon, right? He has it. We're a big man.
Passion.
It's just an enduring strength and believing in yourself, right? It can be. You have to make sure it's al pi Torah, you know. And if it's not al pi Torah, there's nothing really worse than that. Right? Because we were just someone just asked me, what about the Mesiris Nefesh, so to speak, of the Arabs, right? They're willing to die for their cause. That's not Netzach. That's like, it's Netzach. But it's a horribly misplaced Netzach. It's evil incarnate. When you think that you're going to bring forth your truth like an eternal, enduring way, and you're not batal to the Chokhmah of Hashem, that's the definition of evil. Don't forget, this is a Purim mairmar that we're talking, the Rebbe said this here. So this is what Haman is, right? He'll give everything, he'll pay for all the, you know, buy his position into power because the Jews will not live, you know, and like, guess what? We will. Because our Netzach is bigger than your Netzach. But at the end of the day, it's a very, very horrible midah if you have this. That's why it's prohibited according to the Torah to be noker v'notim unless you're a Talmud Chacham. All right, Masayim B'tov. Finish here.
Woo! That's good. All the videos. This is like the most. It's always kind of hazy, confusing. It's good to clarify it.
Yeah.
It's always a little bit confusing.